Hello, great to have you guys here. Today we will be talking about the International Conference on World-Class Sustainable Cities, WCSC in short. I'm joined here by a passionate group of leaders, each of them an influencer in their own fields. Starting off, we have Datin Mazrina, Abdul Khalid. She is the honorary treasurer of Malaysian Institute of Planners, MIP. Next up, we have Dato Zulkhairi, Muhammad Zain. He is a council member of Persatuan Architect Malaysia, PAM. Last but not least, we have Mr. Chan Jin-Wy, who is the organizing chairman for WCSC 2023. So, welcome to EdgeProp. I wanted to start off with Jin-Wy, a post that you made on LinkedIn that I thought was quite insightful in terms of where WCSC is concerned. And you wrote, I'm paraphrasing here, creating a resilient city is a collective effort, not the work of one person. It takes a community united by a shared purpose. When we travel abroad, we often wonder, what if Malaysia had this? And why doesn't KL offer that? And then you said, let's shift our perspective to how can we start this? Who are the passionate change makers we can collaborate with? Now, in that context, can you share with us WCSC's objective?
Yeah, sure. But before we go on answering that, I think thanks for having us, Alvin, EdgeProp, Jacqueline, and so of course my committee members here as well. Without them, I wouldn't be able to be here today to even host WCSC to begin with. I think thank you very much for having us for this podcast session. I guess all of us travel quite a fair bit, and a side joke was that someone was just telling me that they were bringing up their kid, and they mentioned it takes a village to bring up a kid, right? So I think maybe a few villages, but perhaps I think if I relate back to what my post was that I think we are always, in a way, questioning how come we don't have this, how come we don't have that, what if we can have this here, why we can do it there, but everyone is just questioning, no one's giving any answers. But my take is always, let's reframe our mindset and say, okay, stop being the person that's questioning. How about being a proactive person or an association or a team to say that, how can we meet the people that we want to meet and bring up and answer these kind of problems that everyone is facing? I think the problem that Kuala Lumpur City is facing is nothing new. Every country is facing, in a sense, whether it's climate change, whether it's overdevelopment, or whether it's traffic jam, or whether there's not enough green space and whatnot. So I guess that is the question everybody is asking. So to answer your question on what is the objective of WCSC? WCSC has started since 2009, so this year is the 14th year, and it has changed many iterations, it has changed many formats, and speakers has come and gone. I think we have close to about 47 international speakers that has come since 2009 until today. I've of course heard people say, having all these conferences, what can be done? What are the big changes that can be done? I think the first big changes may not be physical. The first big change is the mindset and the reframing. So the objective for WCSC is a platform where organizations like ours, Rehda Wilayah, MIP, Architect, PAM, and also the local council, DBKL, who is the city hall for the capital of Malaysia, they are the ones that's going to be, in a way, implementing whatever exercises, funding certain exercises as well, and also enforcing certain policies.
Yep.
So this, with the professional bodies, I think that's where it's a good platform to gather like-minded individuals, like-minded organizations, even though the changes may not be huge. And I think maybe let's put the big change aside. Let's go on small wins. I think every small wins will bring us closer to the end goal. So to answer your question, I think the objective is to bring everyone closer together with the same topic, the right questions, and perhaps some answers, and equals action plan and implementation. I think that's the main objective as I understand as well. And also my second year hosting WCSC as the organizing chairperson. So
the
somehow,
only person to host it.
For 2 years.
Unfortunately,
For 2 consecutive years,
fortunately
yes.
or
You
unfortunately,
must have done something right.
or maybe for other reasons, I do not know. Let's not go into that. This is not the platform. But yeah, I think that's the reason
Okay.
of the whole objective as well. And maybe I'm not sure. Maybe my committee members they want to add something on.
Maybe I just add
Yep.
a little bit. What Chairman Jin-Wy has mentioned is quite true. At the beginning, it's all about just giving awareness to everyone, including including the professional bodies as well, who are actually in partnership of doing WCSC. We are all at that time wanting to understand more, learn more, and starting with the collaborations of the 3 main organizations is together with DBKL. It shows the partnership, which now it's put nicely because SDG 17 says the partnership,
Correct.
how important it is to have that strong collaborative partnership between not just professional body but also with the main stakeholders of the development, which is the developers, together with the local authorities itself. And
It's a collective effort.
yeah, it's
in
a
way.
collective effort, and the best thing is that we bring in the community groups together to understand also, whether there's a new concept or whether understanding whatever that the development is going through at the moment, and also calling in other than just KL folks. This go beyond KL. Even though it is starting with
Right.
KL as
Right.
the main location, with Kuala Lumpur City Hall as the main support
The insights can be
organization,
applied.
but
Not just
the
Malaysia, even
impact,
regionally,
it
right?
goes
Yep.
everywhere. That's the beauty part of it. That's what
Right.
we want, spreading awareness to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to add on as well, I think WCSC is also a platform where other local authority officers from other states, even though it's supported and endorsed by DBKL,
Yep.
the Kuala Lumpur City Hall, we have MPBJ coming, we have Air Kero from Laga coming,
Yeah.
maybe we have Sungai Petani coming, we have Penang coming.
Yep.
So it's also a gathering of minds of the people on ground, as in the officers on ground, the civil servants on ground, where chances of them, in a way, going international can be a little bit costly. So we
Right.
bring this international speakers down to KL for them to come to
exactly.
a more
Yeah.
localized area,
Yeah.
for them to pick up bits and pieces of advices, implementation ideas,
Right.
aspirations, or certain suggestions. And if they can do something a little bit there, a little bit better than nothing. So I
Yeah,
guess that is
exactly.
also one key platform where we have quite good support by even I think Plan Malaysia as well.
Yeah.
That's also coming in to give this endorsement altogether.
And just following up on that, right? I think a quick Google search would have uncovered a few events that are related to what we're trying to achieve here. Just to give you a few examples, there are Smart Cities Asia.
Yeah.
There is the Malaysia Urban Forum
Yeah.
that is happening this year in Malaysia.
November.
Now,
Yeah.
having said that, I do notice that WCSC is perhaps the longest running one, as you mentioned, starting in 2009. This is its 14th year. To what would you account WCSC's longevity, and how has it evolved over the last 14 years? Perhaps Dato Zul, you could.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alvin, for having us here. Okay, to answer your second question, basically the continuity or the longevity of this WCSC is more on, is according to what I've seen so far. I've been involved in this for 5 series already.
Yes.
Yeah. From my observation, it is a good platform, for the expert and the practitioners to share knowledge and their experience on the development of a field. The smart cities. So everything is lumped into this conference. So and then because of that, and with the collaboration between the planners, the architects, and also developers, I think that is a good synergy. People can see And also we have local authorities like DBKL. DBKL is a big local authorities, right?
Yep.
So people always try to emulate what DBKL is trying to do, you know. So that is a good, what do you call it? Something that people are looking up to,
Yep.
right? So that I think
role
is
model.
one of the reason why WCSC can stay relevant, even though after like 16 years, but of course we skipped 2 years during the pandemic, right? But now it's in the 14 years,
Yep.
right? 14th edition. And secondly, I realized that in WCSC, it's always about addressing the changing needs of the industry, especially the construction
Right,
industry.
right.
You know,
And you evolve in terms
Yes,
of
yeah.
adapt to what are the current issues, right?
And
Because I think
true to its name, WCSC, World Class Sustainable City, right? So it talks about sustainability, and in tandem with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, the 17 goals,
Right.
And then over time, it expanded to topics on. We're talking about topics on livability, you know,
Right.
livability, right? And then now it's about resiliency, you know. So the topics keep on adding to it, you know. That makes it more interesting, right?
Thanks, Dato. Any?
Yeah, I think the question also related to question number one, where we answered just now, the
Right.
partnership, the strong
Right.
partnership between the organizations. Is I think that is the true fundamentals of making this WCSC prolong until now.
Right.
And then having strong support from the city manager itself, the DBKL, who are
authorities,
actually
right.
the caretaker of Kuala Lumpur. I think that is
Right.
also very, very important for making WCSC stand still.
Yes.
And being current. I think being recent, being current is also important.
Yeah.
Getting to know what is the topic of the day, you know, what is the flavor of the month.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
that is
yes.
very, very important, because we do not want to bring to people yesterday's story. You know, it has to be what people is talking about, like that as well mentioning just now. You know, now good enough, the SDG goal 17 actually introduced only in 2014, 2015, but we would be able to, you know, coin it and link it up back to world class sustainable city, you know,
Right,
all the
right.
elements and things like that. And we would be able to understand what do people wants to hear at that moment of time. You know, what are the major issues, like you were saying just now, being relevant and having to know what are the issues that people want to hear. You know, it's no point doing it's okay also to bring back the same issue, because we
Yep.
did bring back a few issues because it is the issue that is needed to be talked about.
Right,
You know,
right.
so having to understand what are the current issue is also important. But again, partnership, support,
Right. Yep.
is important.
Yeah.
I think there are a few pertinent points that I'd like to touch on now. Dato, you mentioned just now in terms of resiliency. I'm going to put a bookmark on that and cover
Yeah.
that later.
Right.
And Datin, you mentioned also that the fact that the local councils are supporting it, to me, things, you know, the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. And the fact that they've continued to support means they have seen value coming out of conferences like this, gathering of minds and all that. Datin, would you be able to share some examples of initiatives or projects that were influenced by or directly, if not directly attributed to, the learnings that from previous WCSC conferences that has impacted the development of Kuala Lumpur?
There are quite a few that we have actually, or DBKL has actually, you know, using whatever sharing session from the conference itself and implement it on the ground. But just to put it again in the perspective, WCSC is not just about the conference. The good part of WCSC, it has various angles to it. One is the conference itself.
Right.
Two is the master class that comes with the conference, or the smaller sharing session that we approach, DBKL, and they choose some of the areas that they want the speakers and the organizers to look in detail
So
for
the
improvement.
master classes
There are also
held
master classes
with the policy makers, the ones who are making the changes.
And another one is the technical visit. It's either pre-tour to the conference or post-tour to the conference. So we have gone to Bangkok, for instance, last year, the post-tour WCSC. We even went to Copenhagen, Malmo, twice to even look at the pedestrian and bicycle lane, and how those important connectivity, active mobility, and also linking it up to the public spaces. Even brought some of the participants from the conference who interested to join and look for themselves in terms of the success story. But to name a few, 2009, we brought in a speaker from Korea who spoke about Changaichong River. How the river has been revitalized from highway coming in. They took off the highway and revitalized the river, and the area become a placemaking area. People use it as connectivity, and people goes there, for gathering and things like that. And that was when the River of Life in KL started. We DBKL also learning from that kind of example. And 2011 we have a paper brought in on economic competitiveness through city transformation. This is from Mr. Sebastian Moffat, a critical element of success. He is actually from Canada. So this is when DBKL look at how they can look at TRX, Bandar Malaysia, how does those cities or those townships within Kuala Lumpur will be able to spur up economic development, economic transformation within KL itself. And 2012, we have Jan Gell himself coming in. And Jan Gell is the famous architect and also urban designer who actually has a book on cities for the people. How cities actually transform to consider people as priority as compared to consider cars and vehicles and things like that. So with Jan Gell coming in, we look at,
sorry, for the benefits of our viewers who may not be familiar with who Jan Gell is, perhaps, I'm sorry to interrupt, but perhaps
no problem.
You can give a
A
bit
big
of flavor
overview.
of who he is, what has he
Gell
done.
is an architect and urban designer, famous world-renowned architect and urban designer who based in Copenhagen under the company Gell and Partners.
Right.
He is among the believer, I would say believer in terms of converting spaces within the city, giving priority to people, to convert the city to become more vibrant.
More like placemaking.
More placemaking and whatnot. For example, I just came back from Melbourne. Rob Adams is another urban designer with City of Melbourne. And he said that when Melbourne wanted to go through a transformation of bringing more people, making Melbourne more walkable city and livable city, they've done a lot of initiative, but nobody knows their initiative. So what they've done is that they bring in Jan Gell. So Jan Gell came in, do an assessment and do a book. And that book actually, tell people all about it. And because of that, a lot of people come to know about, how Melbourne has actually transformed into
it is one of the most livable cities in the world.
Yeah, it has been a most livable city, I think, for 7 consecutive years already. So that is why Melbourne has becoming, a place where people benchmark against, So that is Jan Gell. So we look at the pedestrian walkway, Bukit Bintang. So DBKL learned from what Jan Gell advised.
So the pedestrian walkway was based on Jan Gell's input?
Yes. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, he also gives his opinion. The one that elevated walkway at the Maju Junction, he gives a No, because
Why?
it kills the it's a different experience with Bangkok. With that, he normally do not agree with the elevated walkway because of it will kill the shop owners on the ground level. So
Okay,
if
okay.
if we are introducing an elevated walkway, we need to make sure that the ground level shop owners
Still get the
has
still
also
get the
to
traffic.
be yeah
Still get the
yeah.
footfall traffic, right?
And not,
Yeah.
I think not just traffic, but I think the key element in city living is more that serendipitous interactions
Yeah.
that gives life to the
Yeah,
city. You don't want
yeah.
people to just walk from point to point, right?
Yeah.
You want them to knock
Yeah,
against
exactly.
each other and
Exactly.
create that.
Yeah,
thing.
but example in Bangkok is different. They have elevated walkway throughout,
Yep.
the main city area, but down the shops at the ground level still thriving. That depends on city to city where it's actually happening. So that's 2012. 2013, there's Charles Landry and Biaka Ingalls. Those are also famous
Right.
I think
architects
big is,
and also
huge.
urban planners.
Okay.
So they talk about urban regeneration, things like that. That is where DBKL use Kenanga wholesale area as a case study to bring in Biaka and also Charles to look at how they can actually revive or revitalize Kenanga wholesale
Okay.
area, surrounding area. And 2014 we have Fred Ken. Fred Ken is actually president of Project for Public Spaces, New York, USA. So these are also among the urban designer who actually revive spaces, for the people basically. So and this is when KL also learn from those experience and revive back lanes, small public spaces to make it more usable for the people of KL.
I suppose these people that you invited, they are pretty much celebrities in their own right, very
Yeah,
established. What is it that made them say, okay, I'll come and give my opinions to KL?
Yeah, I think it's I think KL is also a city that attracts a lot of international people. And also being invited by the mayor himself. That is the beauty of it. We use the mayor himself to
Okay.
invite those
Right,
speakers.
right.
So,
So that
being
was
an
the-
invitation, getting an invitation from the mayor himself is a big honor, for these speakers to come in.
Okay.
And I think before that, they have also come to Malaysia for other occasions, and they see that their contributions could also, give values to Kuala Lumpur as a whole.
Okay. And this is where conferences like the WCSC
Yes.
allows them to
Yes.
see the benefit that they espouse being implemented, right?
Can I
Yep,
a bit
sure,
to
yep.
that? Okay, so directly or indirectly, I think this conference has had its influence to the city managers around Malaysia, especially the BKL, and then the others like Penang or JB, because you can see from the last 14 years, right? So whatever that has been discussed, talks, within that WCSC conference, we have seen it, coming up, So whether it's directly
River of Life,
out from
the Bukit
WCSC or
Bintang,
not,
Yeah.
but those are the things that has been done all over the world. So
Yeah.
that's why a post-conference visit to European countries, to Southeast Asia countries. I think that those are very important to benchmark, where
Right.
we are compared to other developed nations. So you can see things like bicycle lane. We don't have bicycle lane before,
Yep.
but suddenly you see bicycle lane in KL, you see in PJ area, and you see in other PBTs as well. And then those are the things that is very glaring, that we can see within these 10 years.
Yep.
So it's all over the world also they are
Right.
doing the same thing, right? And then I can see also that the figure or the people that WSC brought in, like Young Gel,
Yep.
Young Gal, Biaki Ingalls and all that, they are like influential, world influencers,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people are always looking at what they're doing, you know, and try to imitate for the good, you know.
Yep.
I think that is where we can see the relevancy of WCSC. And to come back to your question, I think there is PBTs around Malaysia that has adopted what has been done or what has been discussed within our theme. You know.
Yeah.
That's how I see
I
it.
hope that one day, you know, all these other cities may invite our BBKL to then present our best practices and learn from us, right?
And
I
then
guess
also
that is
what makes it easier for us to invite them, you know, because now for the last I can say for the last 20 years, people know where KL is. Before that, you know, I was studying in the United States, you know.
right.
When you talk about I'm from KL, you said, oh, you know where KL is? They seem not to know where KL is, you know, but you have to explain. It's in Southeast Asia between Singapore and Thailand.
That was before the tallest building in the world is built.
Definitely have a taller building. You know, we have 2 tallest buildings in the world.
Right,
it's a
right.
twin, you know, it's
a
not
twin
one,
tower.
but twin. So that's where people start to know Kuala Lumpur.
Yep.
And then we have Formula One, you know, the AMG, Mercedes and all that. So people are very anxious to see, oh, we have a Caesar Palace building, you know, the famous architect also doing this twin tower.
Right.
And then also the landscape architect, another famous landscape architect doing the KLCC.
Right.
So other consultant, planners, architect, engineers, suddenly, you know, they want to come to Malaysia, you know, to do,
becomes a destination.
to put their marks, you know, to put their marks here also, you know.
Yep.
Because people were is looking up to Malaysia also, Southeast Asia, you know, to the west or to the east of Malaysia,
Right.
you know, we are known, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on a point that on, you know, knowledge transfer and resilient urbanization. One point that you brought up just now, resiliency, is the theme for this year's WCSC. Now, zeroing on resilience, urbanization, it is a rather broad theme, right?
Okay.
Let's get into what it means. Can you break it down to our audience in terms of what kind of challenges are we tackling here and what resilient solutions are we seeking? Perhaps, Jin-Wy, you can share.
Yeah, I think the main umbrella of the conference theme is resilient urbanization. Those two are quite a powerful word, but they not hold much water because it's too big.
Yeah.
We can't really describe. So I think a few of the sub-themes that we came about before we actually go in to choose which speaker that we want to invite to talk about. One of the key ones, if I recall, is actually flood mitigation. That's one
Very
of it.
relevant issue.
Very relevant issue for reasons of recent times. Another one, if I recall, is also this open green spaces. Open green spaces as well. The third one is affordable housing. Or building sustainable affordable housing.
Right.
So I think these are the top 3 main points that we were talking about. Why did we choose these 3? So let's go with flood mitigation. I think flood mitigation is mainly because of recent incidents since end of last year. It's not only KL, that one that's flooded.
Yep.
I think just 2 weeks or last week, typhoon came in Hong Kong and the flood was also pretty damaging as well. So Mother Nature is changing, climate is changing. So flood mitigation is one of the key topics that everybody will talk about.
Sure.
The other one is this open spaces. So little do you know, actually in Kuala Lumpur city centre itself, we are also one of the very few capital cities that has quite a number of parks. Your Bukit Nanas Park. You also have your Tugu Park. You also have your there's KLCC Park as well, right?
Yep.
There's so many of this,
And Lake Gardens is not too far.
and also not too far.
Yeah.
So, and you're only just talking about really still city center, not even out of the suburban areas as well. So how can we utilize the open spaces more by perhaps making it a dual function? And that's the topic that maybe the Thai speaker that's coming in to speak about Bencha Kitty Park in Bangkok, which was a tobacco factory many years ago, and they turned it and re-gentrified to make it as a community park, where it is also a water retention pond
Yes.
area as well. And all this was converted within the span of 18 months during COVID, 2020 to 2021 or early 2022.
So it was a tobacco factory
Yeah.
turned into a park, turned into a water retention.
Not turned into double usage,
Yeah.
multi-usage.
Okay,
Part
So
of and
I
also
see.
retention.
Part of it.
Yeah.
As
All
a
in the span of
retention.
18 months.
all in the span of 18 months. And the interesting thing of that was that, you know who did the construction? The army of Thailand.
Wow.
So you want to keep that fit, right?
Yeah.
And COVID, nothing, there's no war to fight, only COVID war. And
They
nothing
They
to do
can't find the
army.
labor.
That's
So no labor,
Labour
so they use the
shortage.
local labor. So I guess
That was interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was
Wow.
really interesting, where it's
Yeah.
not just only about just building an open space, but it's
Mm.
not just also building a retention pond, but it's also to keep our so-called civil servant colleagues
Yes.
to be active and
Yeah.
utilize the labor that
Mm,
we have, which are, and maximize the output.
right.
So I think that was a very, very interesting story.
Excellent.
And when we went the post visit last year, which was invited by our last year's Thai landscape architect speaker, he brought us and he arranged for the trip. And that really opened our eyes. And it was really, really nice, one. And that being said, with that park, it also welcomed flora and fauna as well. You have I think there was also a beehive nest as well. There also was
different
a lot of
fauna, different animals come.
insect was
come
there.
in.
You even have the four-legged Komodo there. So four-legged lizard there. So it was really, really nice.
Yep.
But why Benchak Titi Park was built that way was also because it is the new so-called the new CBD, where the new convention center is opening up, the new office towers are bringing up.
Yep.
So they're also trying to activate the space rather than living as an industrial so-called dilapidated factory by its own.
Right. Right.
And that adds on to retaining certain structures to turn it into be a event space.
Yeah.
Something like Rex
Outdoor
outdoor
event,
warehouse,
yeah.
So
Okay.
in a way, all these parks are not just for the sake of just exercising and playing frisbee or play badminton and picnic. It is also a place to reactivate and even bring activities there, commercial
that's
activities there.
interesting. Yep.
So that's really, really interesting. That's why I said, okay, you got to come to KL next year. And she actually accepted it when we met her and invited her. So that's one of the speakers, which is the lady from Thailand, and that's on open spaces.
Right.
The other one, I think, which is very dear to Rehda. Rehda is
housing.
affordable housing. Or in fact, talking about affordable housing, some people will just jump in and say it's the cost. But housing, to me, in general, on my own personal opinion, not so much on the association, is housing is a housing where everyone deserves to have a roof, walls, lights, supply utilities, and at their own affordability range from low to high end.
It's a basic human right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a basic human right? So I think that's really key, and I think we have someone who's going to be coming to speak, if not mistaken, from Singapore, to talk about building housing by including greenery and nature to make it sustainable. With the recent hike of TNB costs, common areas, especially condominiums, maintenance fee has gone up. Right. So things like this will also come into play, and then you have solar panels to be in condominiums. Whether is it really sustainable, whether is it really effective, that's always a question mark, because efficiency of the sun may not be applicable. And if there's buildings next to you, it's also not effective as well.
Sure.
So I think these are the few topics that we dived into, these three main ones, to talk about before we selected the speakers. But one of the key that I think we are very, very happy and very proud to have is also His Excellency Dr. Bambang from Indonesia. Talk about sustainable development in a totally greenfield area, which is a forest, and how are they really developing sustainably. So I think that's also one of very
Is
interesting.
this part of the Nusantara?
Yes.
Yes, so
It is
this,
Nusantara.
so
Okay.
this gentleman is the chairman of Nusantara. So
Oh, wow.
Nusantara is in Kalimantan.
Mm.
And Nusantara, which is the capital of Indonesia, Ibu Kota Negara, IKN, would be chaired by this gentleman called Pak Bambang,
Oh,
who's
wow.
coming in.
Okay.
So we actually have him to come and share with us, and it is quite a big deal because I think
Yeah.
everybody wants to speak to him too.
Yeah.
Right? And why would he come to us? Because I think we are neighbors, and I think that's where these are things that it's very interesting, and it's not so easily to get access to even listen to him speak as well. So yeah, these are real key key pull factors of speakers that we have invited. Of course, the other speakers from Australia, two of them, and we also have someone from Singapore that's coming in, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, and Australia. So ASEAN holds more,
Pretty
but
much,
we also have Australia too. So
Okay.
I think this is a very nice mix and flavors. And
each with
topics
their
as
own
well.
strength
Each with their own
and
strength
case
as well.
studies, right?
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
But just to
Okay.
add in terms of speakers, WCSC do not just acknowledge wanting to learn about international experiences, but after certain years, WCSC has also said that, why not, after so long, we choose and pick and also call the local experiences. We did call Dato Sri Maimunah once as a speaker, to talk about, her experience, and also making Seberang Perai when she was the mayor of Seberang Perai, making Seberang Perai more livable and more place-making, creating more places for the people. We did call a few other local speakers as well.
share
So
best practices.
so now if you can see, total speakers altogether so far has come up to 67 numbers, and 40 or 47 out of the numbers are actually international. So the balance are actually, we have called many speakers from the
67
from Malaysia
is
as well.
throughout
To
from
2009
right,
until
right.
now.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So like
Okay.
this year we have Taung Planner Noliza Hashim, who will be also talking once we talk about resiliency and whatnot, and how does city prepares, and how does city plan to achieve SDG by 2030. How does KL preparing it? KL has also now
2030 is not
preparing.
that long.
Yeah. It's 6 years down the road. So making all the cities prepared are very important.
Right.
So we have that as well in the pipeline. We also call the CEO of Prasarana to talk about the importance of mobility.
That's also the one of the themes as well for public transportation logistics, which is very, very key
mobility.
to mobility.
Mobility. Yes, because last WCSC we called
Dato Zarif from
Dato
MRT
Zarif
Corp.
from MRT
I
Corp.
see.
So this is a
Okay.
continuation. We hope this is a continuation for a bigger loop of connectivity of
And it was very
mobility.
timely as well, because
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
a topic that everyone was very
Was-
interested to
yeah,
know.
Yes.
At
was
this,
to
at,
know.
this, at, this, at this session, everyone was really, really paying attention to all the
Yeah.
eyes open. Okay, so now you know. So
Yeah.
I like to add a bit.
Yeah.
I like to go back to your original question just now about the meaning of that
Resilience,
resilient urbanization.
urbanization.
Right. Okay, so in the early days, when we talk about resiliency, we are more focusing on the ability to bounce back, from disaster. After
Right.
disaster, what do you do?
Anti-fragile.
As a post-disaster, how fast can you come back to a normal? We always look at Japan's story after the earthquake. They're able to come back.
Yes.
But over the years, the terminology of resiliency expanded. It's not just covering the the disaster, just like an earthquake or flood. It's more to that. More on a natural disaster. It goes to like economic downturns, pandemics, right? Like a COVID-19 pandemic. Now that is considered disaster that we need to deal
Address.
with. How resilient you can be, and also climate change. That is the in thing now. That is a big news. Every day people talking about climate change. So if you go into all these things, it can be called that these are the challenges. To the urbanization resiliency. So, for example, climate change, we have extreme weather, we have extreme precipitation. Suddenly, in summer, we have heavy rain, for example, I was in Europe, in Copenhagen, for the UIA Congress. Union of International Architect Congress in July.
Right.
That was summer. You know, from 2nd of July to 7th of July.
Yeah.
And then, but the temperature there is still 6 degrees, 7 degrees, you know, in summer, right? And then in Malaysia also, normally in July or in June, July, we consider it's a dry season, but suddenly you have a heavy downpour.
Yeah, and you're seeing more and more extreme weather events, right?
So that's now we have to deal with how efficient we can deal with the situation.
Yep.
You know, to come back, to bounce back, you know, right? And then also the issue, the challenges that we have now is that we are lacking in infrastructure. You know, as an architect, also I of course will look into buildings, you know, and all that. You know, for example, we need to have enough housing, you know, adequate housing to cater for the people. Like for example, in Kuala Langat, in Ulu Langat, the other in a few months or last year, when there's a flood, then people are being displaced, you know, so they need to have a place, right?
Yep.
So those are the challenges that we have to deal with. Where are we going to put these people?
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago in Kuala Krai, right? When there's a heavy flood,
Yes.
so people lost their house,
Yeah.
you know, so we have to deal with that.
Yep.
Yeah, and then another thing is that we have things like economic inequality. That is another issue that we need to be resilient in, you know, meaning that people don't have they're living in a poverty. You know, what do we do with them?
And,
How
and
do
that
we
is
deal?
linked pretty much to social mobility as well, right? How
Yes.
do you
Yeah.
move people up from?
And the last thing is the social inequality, lah. You know, I would say because there's the race, ethnicity, and class. You know, so it's very difficult for us to build the social cohesion. You know, among the community. So that requires resiliency as well. You know, so we have to look into that also, lah. You know.
One of the themes that has cropped up again and again during our discussion is the fact that you really need collective effort, right? Now, I would like you all to put on your respective functional hats, you know, Rehda, MIP, Pam. How can your profession contribute to resiliency? Now, I understand everybody needs to do their part, but for your particular, maybe let's start with Dato Zul.
Okay.
For architects, how do architects contribute to that?
Okay, so it's almost similar to what I have said just now, but this time I'm going to elaborate a bit more. All right. So if you in architecture profession, how we contribute to the resilient urbanization is through designing building and infrastructures, you know, that are resilient to the effect of the climate change. You know, I would like to focus on that because resilient to climate change, like, you know, when there's now we have a problem of rising sea level. People are talking about KL is going to sink.
Yeah.
How many years? 50
I've
years.
seen the projections. It's a bit
Then,
scary.
Everywhere.
you will
Even 2030 projections.
Yeah, something like that, you know.
Yeah.
So what do we do from there? And then people are talking about extreme weather, flooding, you know.
Yeah.
So as an architect or a player in the building industry, we have to be sensitive to that. You know, maybe we have to start proposing or start looking into designing more of a building, elevated buildings, you know, building elevated from the ground, you know, that it can cater for so
Are
many.
those things being done, considered, or?
For now, and they're being done, but not as rigorous, you know. Yeah, but studies is not much on that because you can see, for example, in our East Coast, right? People are still building houses by the beach, you know, or near the beach, you know,
People
just
are
like
still
a
building
normal,
basement car parks.
yeah, on the ground, you know. And then now the last 2 weeks, I went back to my in-laws house, you know, in Terengganu. I saw there's a lot of erosion,
Yeah.
from the beach, like 20 feet, coming into the village area.
Yep.
And then the house is still like the same house, built on the ground.
Yeah.
So I think we have to start looking into maybe we have to focus more on building something that can be what do you call it? It can cater during the dry season or during the monsoon season,
Yep.
right? And this is not just we not just for the existing designers and all that. We have to start from the school of architecture. They have to start looking
Yes,
into
thinking
that.
about these things.
Yeah, from year one, we have to nurture the student. You have to really look into what you're doing. You not just simply say, "Oh, I want to build high rise. I want to do this." Yeah.
Yep.
So famous building doesn't have to be like 118 stories.
Yeah.
It can be single story, but long. Maybe it doesn't have to go
Right.
vertical. It can be horizontal. Can be also a famous building.
Yep.
If it can resist all this climate change, it can resist all these things. You consider a resilient building. It's much better than you have a taller building,
Right.
but it cannot withstand even a small vibration.
Yep. Yep.
So that's my take on that,
Okay.
And also we have to look at the building materials. Building material that can withstand moistures and all that. Because we can see there's a lot of buildings now sink. After the
Right.
flood.
Right.
So and then it's damaged everything. So we have to look at the technology on the material. We have to do a lot of research on that. So that means that it's not just the architect or the planners or the developer. And now people are creating green roof. You see, like Bjarke Ingel projects in Stockholm, I think. There's a big condominium with a big garden on the roof. So that is important also because it slows down the movement of water. If you have like just a roof, there's a normal roof, the water come to the gutter, down to the drain, all the way to the river very fast. But you have a roof garden, the water come and then it's slowing down.
It protects against the erosion
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, we're talking about one building. We can slow down maybe just a bit of water, but how about the whole city has something like that?
Okay, and I think that relates very much also to from a planning perspective.
Yeah.
What can planning?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
collaborations between all parties
Yep.
is very important.
Yeah.
So I think that the collaboration between these three parties, I think that is very important and is a good synergy.
Yep.
Right?
And
Yeah.
Datin, I would like to know your thoughts as well in terms of what can planners do in fostering
Yeah, that's
resilience.
it. Go ahead.
Okay, basically we always see that resilient urbanization is basically we would like to create a city that can actually adapt, recover, and also bounce back or thrive back from the challenges, and making sure that it looks into consideration mainly the well-being of the people in the city while doing that.
Right.
When I think when flooding happens everywhere, we have not really, struck our mind. Resiliency initiatives needs to be inbuilt in our planning guidelines or planning design and planning system. But when the pandemic hits us, it really hits us quite badly. It hits the economy, it hits health, people health, even mental health. People start to listen. Many of people goes into depression and things like that. So as a planner, we start to think of how can we involve into giving firstly is awareness. Our awareness, flooding happens because sea level rise. Sea level rise happen because of climate change. Climate change, the heating of the earth and whatever not. It happens because of people's behavior in handling things within the city. So how do we come to that the beginning of the issue. So I think the awareness of managing climate change is very important, and it's not just starting from university. It has to start from school. That is why, like MIP, we always got invited to speak to at the school level, to speak to the kids, in terms of their role, everybody's role, their role in terms of managing, the change of weather, the change of climate, how is their role and responsibility in managing this. It's not that we cannot say that if me alone it will not change everything, but if hundreds and thousands and millions of people will say that I will not do it because I am alone doing it, then nothing will happen.
Right.
So I think awareness is our main objective.
From a
Giving
planning
awareness,
perspective.
from a policy. We have to start look into the policy guidelines of planning, whether
Where do you think we fall short in terms of policies today?
For example, like policies in terms of risk management, looking into risk management in each and every strategic document. Previously, it has not been looked at in detail. Like example, in our planning system, we have the local plan, we have the structure plan. Previously, there is no focus in terms of looking at the risk management itself. When flooding happens, what's going to happen, at the national level, state level, and also the city level, and even at the local level, the most local level area. So now, through Plan Malaysia, we have actually, in any of a strategic document that we prepare for Plan Malaysia, or Plan Malaysia themselves preparing it, we're making sure that the risk management, reducing and managing risk, the main component of the document, how people react to it. So the policy has to also react to manage, to adapt to the situation. And during COVID, we look at, people are unable to use public transport, people are unable to, go to the parks and things like that. So how can we encourage the utilization of public transport and putting it within the guideline itself, making it is a compulsory for developer to provide, not just as a gimmick for advertisement, but it is actually beneficial to the community itself. I think many developers have started to realize that it is not just a gimmick of promotion. Buy a house, we have a 20 kilometer of pedestrian walkway and whatever,
Actually,
parks
thank
and
you
whatever.
for giving me a segue to talk about
It's
developers.
now, many developers started to think that there is the lifestyle that people want. It will create a healthier lifestyle, making the development more livable, and those are the development that now community are looking for.
And surely, I think, Jin-Wy, from a developer's perspective, there's no shortage of developer messaging out there about sustainability, about ESG. What are your thoughts in terms of their, contributions towards resiliency? And again, where do you think developers probably fall short today?
Well, I can't really comment too much on this because it's Rehda National's prerogative to comment. I think what I can say from my own observation and a personal opinion is that I think developers, where we, first and foremost, developers ourselves, when we start development, it is also contributing to almost 125 services down the so-called supply chain or food chain, right? That immediately contributes to economy, social well-being, social uplift, so to speak. And I think that's where business happens, and that also helps to bring in different sort of sustainability to that sense. But when you come to environment, many people know actually developers are also placed with a lot of compliance that's required, whether it's traffic assessment, whether it's environmental assessment, or whether
Social
social assessment.
Social assessment.
So Yeah, I'm not gonna go on that, but not the platform. But yeah, we have a lot of this as well. Of course, at the end of the day, for us, it's also to provide housing for any income level, any population at all. So in terms of falling short or not, or what we have done more or done less, it's perhaps not so much on doing less or more. I think it's more very much on the collaboration and continuous conversations to continue to upgrade ourselves in whatever we want to contribute back to the community. I think that's the only comment I can add on the developer front.
Right.
But in terms of sustainability, everyone is going on a sustainable platform. Like what Dato also mentioned earlier, building materials. People say, oh, you can do IBS. But do you know that when you do IBS, you have a limitation of 120 kilometers? Why? Because of the factory is far away. You want to load a whole load of lorry to KLCC. Is it going to cause traffic jam? It's almost impossible. Then it's also cost of logistics. Right? So I think these are a few things that everyone's thinking that, IBS, what do you do IBS? Everyone's trying to do, but what are the limitations? There are many other limitations as well. So I think where we come from, or for myself as a developer, where we come from is we try to use materials as best as possible to, of course, contribute lesser to the carbon footprint. But that being said, development, you need to do land clearing. You will also have to use a lot of cement, and many things will come into play. So I believe everyone tries to reduce their carbon footprint contribution and also sustainable materials as best as we can. So that's the only point on sustainability on developer front on my end. Yeah.
Great. Do you have any particular hope for people watching this show, for attendees, in terms of what their key takeaways are? And the reason I ask this question is that, this is such a big issue that it's very easy for regular people, non-specialists, non-real estate people to think, hey, let the experts handle it. And I don't really wrong them for that, because it is almost like stumbling in the dark in terms of this is such a big issue. What can one person do? So I think to put it more concisely, what would be your message to people who wants to make a difference in this, in terms of contributing to resiliency? What can they start doing tomorrow? Perhaps we can start with Dato.
Okay, thank you, Alvin. All right, to wrap it up, actually we have a lot more things to say, but time is not with us. Okay, so to wrap it up, I would like to say first and foremost, we are talking about urbanization, urban resiliency, So I think the city itself has to pursue this, The city has to invest. Investment from the city is very important.
But what about people living in the cities?
Yeah, we will come to that.
Okay.
Yeah? So the investment is just to make sure that the effect of climate change is been taken care of. We just discussed just now. We have to look at flood prevention, flood mitigation, before the flood, during the flood, after the flood, But that will also relates to the behavior of the people too. Like what Datin was mentioning just now, we have to start from the small kids. We have to tell them not to throw garbage. But all this garbage, even though it's a small garbage, later it will be collected, and millions of tons, will end up in the river.
The Great Pacific.
Yes, in the river and all the way to the sea.
Yeah.
So it has a chain reaction to it. So the investment is not just on the infrastructure, but it has to go into like a seminar and course and all that. We have to inform the people. Tell the people, talk to the people. From the small age until to the adults.
Right.
Why is it so important? We have to be together to look into this. Not just waiting for the authority to impose and all that. Then only they will look into it. they have to have their own self-motivation that this is their responsibility to look after the world that we live in, not only for us but for everybody and for the people beyond, and also they have to, the city has to provide affordable housing for the people, because we see people on the street with no house and all that, That will be another issue that relates to the urbanization. So when we talk about urbanization resiliency, as I said just now, it's not about a building or infrastructures, but it relates to the poverty, how people live in the urban area.
Social inequality. And
Yes. And then and finally, invest in the research and development on the material, technologies, and all that. So those are the things that will perpetually helps to overcome the issue. Maybe it's not just to get the issue stopped completely, but at least we keep it at the acceptable level, right?
Yeah.
So Datin, any thoughts on what, for example, I can do starting tomorrow? What?
Okay. Well, Dato has mentioned.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing that you started here. He covered most everything that we wanted to say.
So basically,
Okay,
I
or
think
any closing
we go back,
comments?
we go back to the fundamentals of why WCSC, the existence of WCSC.
Yep.
One is to give awareness, sharing information, sharing ideas and whatnot. So I hope that people who attends WCSC would be able to at least understand now, what is resilient urbanization. Urbanization is happening now. More than 70 people are living in the city center. So how do we as a community would be able to contribute to lessen the pressure, lessen the pressure of impact that will happen to the city. But I hope not just to the community, but to the city managers. People who come to WCSC are also from other local authorities, local municipal councils. So maybe they can listen and acknowledge and probably go back, and they would think there are guidelines and policies that they can change within the city, that could address this issue. So I hope WCSC could also give options and choices, not just to community, not just to the professionals, but also to the city managers and also other decision makers. Yeah.
As the organizing chairman of WCSC 2023, any closing comments?
Well, I think they've taken everything that I wanted to say, so it doesn't leave me much choices. But I think to answer your question, I think on what you can do, not you specifically, or what the citizens of the cities, of any cities can do, I think first and foremost is civic mindedness. I'm sure we have seen someone riding a motorcycle, ikat tepi, just or open the window and just throw a banana skin out there, right? So, and one funny story I heard during the flood was, saya jumpa satu tilam kat longkang KL. A mattress, So I think civic mindedness is the first thing that I think people can do in the first place, because because it's not your backyard does not mean it's your rubbish bin. So I think that's the first thing. My plea to everybody to take note of this is very key. But the other point to note, as extending from Datin's point, is I think other than awareness, I think it also links back to education. WCSC is also very open for the students to come. It's also important for the university students to come, the youth to come, and that's where things will change, hopefully for the better. Because that's where a lot of professionals I see these days is that there are not enough exposure, and this is a superb platform for the students to come. And I do hope people who are watching this or listening to this, share it to your friends, your colleagues, your cousins, your nieces, nephews, your old lecturers, and all your alumni. I think please spread it as far wide as possible, because this is something where it may sound very trivial, but at the end of the day, it's still our home. The city is still our home per se.
Yes.
With that being said, I think that's where we hope WCSC will still continue to bring in relevant topics that can provide inspirations, that can provide a good learning platform to everybody, And just do that little one change. I'm not asking you to change your whole approach, but just one little change of being more conscious about the city that you are in. And perhaps
Here.
that's where things can start picking up from there. And collectively, as I read a book recently, saying every day you do 1% change, by the end of the year, you probably get 397% change of your whole entire year itself. So all you just need to do is just do one change, 1% change, everyone. If you can, just do that. And hopefully KL City will be the city that people will be coming and say, hey, how come my hometown don't have this? Rather than we going to the other overseas and saying, hey, why they have it and I don't have it, right? So
We will make it happen.
Yeah,
Yes.
so placemaking is not just place literally. It is always the software and the services that comes into making it as a whole.
Thank you very much for joining us. I hope it has been for me personally very insightful and a very fun interview. I hope it has been like this for you all too. So to the audience watching us, the WCSC 2023 is happening 26th September at the M Resort and Hotel in Kuala Lumpur. So see you there.